I've hit my rock bottom.
Yeah.
At times when I have just literally felt like there's nothing left to give. And I need just like 2 days to recover myself, right?
Right.
From then, so that's an extreme case. Once you figure out a way to, get signals from your state of mind, your mood, your stress levels that I'm crossing that stage of being balanced, then you bring some balance to your routine. And I think these routines of saying, no matter what, I'll do at least 3 workouts in a week.
Welcome to Fit Dad Hustle. I'm your host, Mohammed Asfar. In honor of November, today's episode is all about the mission of men's health. My guest Subs has a powerful story about fatherhood, fitness, and balancing a high-stakes career. We're diving into how moving halfway across the world reshaped his views on health and fatherhood. Ever felt overwhelmed trying to balance work, family, and your own health? Subs had to figure it all out in a new country with zero family support. This episode is dedicated to dads who might be struggling with the same. Men's health is front and center this November, and staying hydrated is key. That's why I choose BioSteel, sugar-free and packed with electrolytes, to fuel busy days. Use code MNYY1417 at checkout for up to 25% off. Take care of yourself so you can be there for the ones you love. So let's get into it. Subs, welcome and thank you for joining us. Tell us about your transition from heading HR at Disney in India to becoming a hands-on dad in California. How did this shift impact your health?
Hey, Mohammed, thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm really a big fan of your pursuit and your mission. I think health and fatherhood goes hand in hand, as we talked a little bit a couple of weeks back. And it is a demanding job, right? Other than your day job. And so I really appreciate you doing this for our fellow dads and community, because a lot of times we all know that we tend to forget taking care of ourselves. So congratulations on focusing on this mission and spreading the good work so that all dads and men and your entire community can help from you. So thank you to start with.
Thank you. A pleasure to have you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to our conversation. So as I had mentioned, I'll take us back about 15 years back when I was heading HR for Disney in India, and then got a call, an opportunity to move to Los Angeles to Disney's headquarters. And me and my wife, we didn't have children back then. We just knew when you don't have children, it's easier to move. So we just moved from Mumbai to Los Angeles. And I kind of started doing my job, my role as an HR leader. And my wife, of course, was a stay-at-home. She stayed at home pursuing kind of different career interests, looking at, soaking up the new cultures and understanding a whole new city, new country. It was a pretty life-changing experience. But in the middle of that, this idea of our parenting journey started. We felt that we were ready to become parents. And just, I think 2 or 3 years after our move, 2 years after our move, we had the exciting news of being pregnant. And, the fatherhood journey starts when, you are pregnant, right? And, you start in anticipation and you become just being a husband to a real partner to your wife in many ways, as she's going through various different levels of change biologically, emotionally. You start to become very involved and, focus on your partnership. And that's when I think that honestly my health took a backseat. I'll talk about, how I navigated that roller coaster ride of becoming a first-time dad and then bringing health back to focus. But like a lot of dads, health took a backseat for me as we approached the birth of our first baby.
Yeah. And now, parenting without family support in California must have been tough. How did you handle the culture change and stay engaged with your health?
It was tough and challenging, but it was a blessing, as it proved to be later on me becoming a more involved dad. But you're absolutely right. When we had our son Neve in 2011, Of course, my in-laws were there with us. They had flown in from India for the birth, but they just, there for a month and they moved back, as in they flew back home to India. And that basically meant that it was just me and my wife, Vinny, just sort of managing to raise a newborn, taking care of ourselves. I had a pretty demanding role as an HR leader at Disney Studios. So it was full on, not a lot of sleep, going to work. So one of the things that I remember doing is just at least making sure that I do squeeze in a short run or a short walk, something to just kind of, just kind of decompress and get some sort of movement going. As you know, you teach this a lot more scientifically, but I just kept it very basic. It was just good for not just physical, but just my mental balance, because we all know how hard it is during the first months of a newborn.
Yeah, and you felt that difference, right, once you started that?
Incredible difference. Yeah, I mean, first of all, it was just almost like a survival mechanism for me so that I can get my bearings back, just go out for a walk, do some breathing. And it's also, just taking the short amount of time to just decompress. I think it was immensely helpful. Otherwise, I was deeply stressed and, quite obviously sleep deprived. And yeah.
Yeah, I believe what you did was very healthy for you and for your wife. A lot of people can go downhill at a different pathway, started picking up certain things that, that could really harm them, but you took a better route, and that I believe that what helped you, be more composed into this challenge.
Yeah, I mean, that just to interject, I don't know how your experience was, but I also remember not eating very healthily, right? Just eating just to survive.
Yeah.
And that may have involved some not so healthy food, maybe a couple of sodas here and there, just to kind of get some sugar and, caffeine intake. So it was kind of all over the place. But as soon as our son started eating some solids, right? I think they started eating, I'm just sort of dating myself, about 6 months, once 6 to 7 months old. Then we tried to build some rhythm and some kind of a routine, not just in our sleeping, but also in our eating. Like we sort of followed a strict schedule in terms of eating and eating healthier. And I know that's when we started our journey of focusing on health, even though it was a newborn, but as a small family.
Okay. So that leads us to this question that I have for you. As a dad balancing work and fitness, what was it like to build new habits in a different country? Yes,
that's a great question. I guess pretty much, whether it's fitness or otherwise, you are adapting to a new culture. And by the time we're already 3 years into the US, and we've sort of kind of settled down. But even then, it was a complete new journey as parents. So what we would do is I actually started listening to a lot of podcasts back then, because I just had no tools to follow the routines of a dad. But I think even back then, podcasts will teach, remind you of focusing on your health. And I remember, doing some yoga, doing some, I was signed up in a gym. My motto and my strategy was to just, even though you do small activities, do it consistently and not just, wait for the big, 3-hour workout or 2-hour workout every 2 weeks, because we know that doesn't come very often. So even if it's like a 30-minute of some activity, it's much better than a long workout every 2 weeks. So consistency and regularity was more important than the volume of the workout, if you will.
Yeah, so basically those were the resources that helped you navigate parenting challenges in the US by you utilizing the podcasts and also get into yoga and all that. Is there anything else that you can remember back then that you found useful as a resource?
Yeah, I think I would say it was not in the physical domain, but more on the mental domain, right? I think that's another thing that I want to shine a light on, because a lot of times fitness and health, by default, our brain switches to physical health. but we know that that's not everything to health and fitness. A lot of our health and fitness also has to do with how we are feeling emotionally and mentally, right? And they are very interdependent. And so that's when I remember, making sure that I was taking advantage of learning, or, the company, my employer had an employee assistance program in which you can sort of talk to therapists for whatever life events that you were going through. Me and my wife also took advantage of that access to therapy, not in a negative way, but to make sure that you are sharing, you're capturing, you're communicating. And that actually provides another level of release and sort of, decompression from any stress that you might be feeling as a part of your new journey. So I just want to make sure that I'm sharing both the aspects of physical and mental health, as it's important in every stage of life, but more important in major life events.
Of course, sir. You come from a culture where family usually supports parenting. How does moving affect your role as a father?
Moving to the US or moving
like you're
back
you come from a culture where family supports parenting, right? So you have, for example, your mother, the grandmother, or an aunt or uncle.
That's right.
Will support. And as a father, you're usually a little bit more laid back in your culture, my culture, as well as an Arab Persian, and the father is not really too involved. But you moving all the way to the US, that role, how did that affect you as a father? Because you were more involved, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. My own growing up in India I remember having a lot of family in the same house, right? We lived across 3 generations, as it might be the case in the Persian culture as well. You're living, in a joint family system, your parents, your grandparents, and there's obviously a lot of help in terms of external help like nannies, etc. in the house. So, the whole parenting responsibilities, or the taking care of a new baby's responsibility, gets fairly distributed. In this case, in my case, it wasn't. As I mentioned, it was a challenge, but as a blessing. Challenge because it required that, I'm deeply working on all aspects of fatherhood, right? From changing nappies to feeding the baby in different parts of the night, to giving a little bath to the baby, the whole works, which not a lot of dads do it in various cultures around the world, including my own culture in India, and then potentially, in your back home culture in the Arabic world. So that was new experience. I'm hoping I captured your culture version.
It's pretty much the same. We had this conversation before. Yeah, we're pretty much the same when it comes to the Indian culture and the Middle Eastern culture, like the Arab Persia. We had nannies. When I was younger, I had a nanny.
There you go.
Oh, I saw having a nanny could not always be a good thing. They bring in their problems as well. I'm sure you experienced that as well.
Their own set of biases.
Yeah, and when I got married, my wife didn't want a nanny, and at the beginning when I had my child as well, my first child, I didn't know what I should do. Because I come from a culture that, a father doesn't really get involved much. Right. But then, after a little while, I got more involved. And it's kind of difficult for you to break that barrier, because you didn't see your father do that. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So, but at the end, it's a great experience.
It is.
You bond with the child at a very young age. You build relations with them, and it's absolutely a wonderful thing. Yeah. And
did you experience that your bond was different, like as a result of you getting more involved and
yeah, of course,
doing all the chores and all the work?
Yeah, of course. Like for me, it's I've always wanted to be, because my late father was a surgeon. Okay, so he was a doctor,
right?
And we barely see him. If we see him, it's only during lunch, and then and that's it. And he's just sleeping because he was on call 24/7. If anything happens at a hospital, they give him a call. You got to come in. He was like a
Yeah, you gotta go.
yeah, So we barely saw him, So that's why, for me, I didn't want that. I wanted to be close to my child. I wanted to be able to have him, speak to me whenever he needed something, so I can guide him better. I didn't want to have that distance between me and my child, so that he'll be afraid, what if I say this to my dad? Like, what if I ask him this? No, I want him to be open about everything, whatever the case may be, so that I can guide him better. Because if he doesn't have that, who is he going to go to? Is he going to go to a stranger and might not even give him the direction,
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's definitely very important. I encourage it 100%, But, there are
That's right.
there are dads out there where their job is too high demanding, and they don't really have the time, but that's, if you can make the time, just make the time. And I'm sure you can always make time.
Make the time. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
so-
Yeah.
So let's get into this. So back.
Yeah. So yeah, I think yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. You want to add something? Go ahead, please.
No, I was just saying that not having all these access to more folks being available to take care of the baby, it required a lot of discipline and a lot of sort of focused way to divide your day and manage your time, because every part of your day was sort of had to be planned.
Of course. So now back in India and facing personal challenges, you've managed to prioritize health and start a podcast in 2023. What inspired you to create a podcast focused on fatherhood? How does it support other dads' health journeys?
Yeah, great question. So for your listeners, I just want to kind of continue the story. So once we had a daughter, so 3 years later, we had our second child, our daughter, and in 2015, me and my wife, we basically decided to move back to India because our parents were, growing older and we didn't have any family there. So we moved back and we moved to Bangalore, which is where I'm, talking to you from. One of the things that I realized when I moved back to India was, lack of any content material to continue my learning journey on fatherhood and parenting, particularly, in this side of the world, from this culture. I mean, of course, there's still those podcasts available from back in the US, but I just want to make sure that I'm also connecting and learning from parenting experiences in my own culture.
Of course. Yeah.
And I didn't find much. So that's when this seed of an idea was born. How about if I start a podcast and invite other dads? We can start telling each other, sharing our stories, and learn from each other. And potentially, a few other dads can learn from that as well. So that was really the little seed of the idea of the Fatherhood podcast that I wanted to start. Of course, an idea comes to your head and it takes some time to kind of execute it. So, and meanwhile, the big life event in all our lives happened, which is the pandemic.
Yeah.
So the idea was there before the pandemic, but I only launched my podcast. It's called Dad Sense in early 2023. So it's a little bit more than a year and a half along this journey. But that was the inspiration, if that makes sense.
No, that totally makes sense, 100%. Like if you want to learn from, especially you come from a culture like what we talked about, where you come from, like there's nannies, there's family support, there's all that, and then you go into a culture shock where you're in a different country. You got to learn the ropes of how you can deal with people in that country, because you've never been there before, and then you learn from your own culture as well, and that they're going to be able to help you out into adapting and merging into this new culture, which totally makes sense, of course. Yeah, no, I believe that was a perfect idea for you to guide you further. Yeah, that's good on you on that one. Now,
it's been a great journey.
That's great. Now, with a high demand job at Amazon, how do you prioritize fitness, family, and mental well-being?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was, again, like all working professionals, dads, moms would vouch for, There's no magic bullet here, right? And no 2 days are the same. The only thing you can do is, have some mental framework on how you're going to approach this. So to me, my approach was that I will prioritize, I'll decide what is important for me which day and have a plan in distributing my fitness routine, for example. I started taking into running, some serious running about 4 years back, coupled with workouts and some, time at home. So you have to be very, very protective about your time and guard it very fiercely. For example, if you plan to go for a run today at 8 in the morning, you basically announce to all your stakeholders at work, at home, that 8 to 9:30, I'm not available, right? And then that way, you are able to focus on what you planned it for and not being carried and hijacked by something else that became urgent, right? So I think being planful, as everybody will agree, was a big, big part of the process. Second is, again, not park everything for the weekend. You can't say that, I'll focus on my health in the weekend and I will not focus on my health in the weekdays. That is not sustainable and that's not good for the health. So you have to do little every day. Maybe it's 4 times a week or whatever.
Yeah.
But you really can't say, I'll pack everything to like 3 hours on a Saturday. That's just not healthy to start with.
Of course.
So that's kind of how I approached it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Now you mentioned something that's gonna lead to this next question now. So for dads struggling with time and energy, what advice would you give on integrating health into daily life? Like, you just basically answered that question about what can you add further into this?
Yeah, I think one is, and it's a journey, right? You have to make a start. Everybody's in a different, point in the spectrum. There are people who are very evolved. They have a very, very highly sophisticated health routine. I don't consider myself anywhere near there. I'm probably in the lower half, if you will. I'm proud of it, but I'm on a journey. So by no means I'm coming here as an expert in this, because I'm still kind of work in progress. But my few suggestions is just know when you're getting tapped out, like what level of work will make you feel tapped out. Because we are, as men, women, but more so men, who are very, very, take a lot of pride and from the identity from work. We get obsessed about work and just forget about taking care of ourselves until it just blows up on our face. I'm just kind of putting it very bluntly.
Yeah, of course. Yes, true. It's true.
So my first suggestion is be aware of how you are feeling as you're working, and just be mindful how your tank is kind of getting empty, and make sure that you're filling up your tank, because you don't want it to completely run out and then realize that you've hit a real rock bottom. So that's my first suggestion. And the reason I'm saying this is I've done that. I've hit my rock bottom.
Yeah.
At times when I have just literally felt like there's nothing left to give, and I need just like 2 days to recover myself, right? From then, so that's an extreme case. Once you figure out a way to, get signals from your state of mind, your mood, your stress levels, that I'm crossing that stage of being balanced, then you bring some balance to your routine. And I think these routines of saying, no matter what, I'll do at least 3 workouts in a week. Take small goals, but make sure you do them. Right? Don't say I'm going to work out 7 days a week and then get frustrated if you only could do 6, right?
Yeah.
Because that's also another thing. You can get obsessive about working out, and then that could lead to frustration as well, if you can't do it, because that's also another form of addiction. And for all of us, like at least for me, I tend to get obsessive about things. So I found myself obsessive about not being able to work out also. And that leads you to stress as well, and you become cranky to your family members, and it's not useful. So take realistic goals, small goals, and then make sure that you you're knocking them out.
Yeah, it's basically baby steps. You gotta, like you said, you gotta start somewhere, and that's something that we always talk about, like when it comes to my clients or friends or family. Like you said, you hit it right on the target. You gotta be realistic with your goals. Don't be too extreme. Yes, you can be like,
Yep.
Obsessive about it, or passionate about it, but let's be realistic. Let's take a step back. Let's give it a start. For example, if you've never exercised in your life, you can do 7 in a week. That's gotta be difficult because the body is gonna be in a shock, So it's gotta be a body shock. So you gotta build this slowly, just like swimming or any sport you get into. You can't just like jump right into and you're gonna be like Stephen.
Jump to the deep end, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, yeah, you're definitely right. I totally agree with what you're saying. So, balancing an intense job with parenting is hard for anyone. So, especially with health and focus. How do you structure your day to ensure physical and mental well-being while staying present with your kids?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say that my routine is I want to start my day with some physical activity because that's easier to kind of get it out of the way. I know, everyone has their own routine and the perfect sweet spot of when they feel great. To me, I think I have a lot of energy and good, motivation to get something going in the as a physical activity. So I try to, after the kids are off to school, I try to do something first thing. So that's more on the physical front. If I do a run one day, I'll, do some strength training another day and so forth. Then what I've also introduced, were you saying something?
No, I'm listening to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so what I've also introduced a few things is before workout, you have to be very protective about your sleep. I think sleep is a very underrated, underappreciated aspect of health and fitness. I think our entire day is set by your sleep in the previous night. So I've been, again, focusing a lot on my quality of sleep along with the quantity of sleep, making sure that I stick to a particular routine. I don't have any screen time before going to bed, and make sure that and also I've introduced a hot shower in the night before going to bed, a couple of hours before going to bed. That actually brings down all the, detoxifies you, and also, sort of mentally, it sort of, makes you a little bit more relaxed, if you will. And that's more conducive to sleep. So shower, no screen, protective about sleep, make sure that you get those 7-8 hours, and then start your morning with a physical routine. So that's my ritual. And on the other side of the day, I try to either take a walk or go for, take your dog for a walk, or you and your partner go for a walk. I think just a mellow walk is very, very healthy. The other thing I've introduced is meditation, right? Which is not a religious ritual, but just kind of just taking some time off and focus on breathing and just feeling your presence, and whatever technique of meditation you like, but follow a simple routine and do that meditation that again brings the balance in your mental state. So I think those are some of the ways in which I can describe how my health rituals are.
Okay, great. So you touched on, I think we can say those were like daily habits, so to speak, as well, right? So
Yeah.
that could help your energy go up. So is there anything else that you would like to add when it comes to habits and keeping that energy up?
Yeah, I think I forgot one. I know I talked about the hot exposure. I forgot to talk about the cold exposure, right? Whether it's a swim in the pool or a cold shower. I think the cold shower is very easy to do. Over the last couple of years, I've learned a lot about the benefits of cold and hot exposure, which has multiple benefits, including, kicking off some of the hormones in your body that's good for your longevity. And also it releases some real happiness chemicals. Again, I'm putting it out as a layman's language. I've actually experienced incredible amount of positive feelings by just exposing myself to cold and hot showers and alternate between the two. So that's another habit that I thought I'll share with you. Other than that, I think pursuing your, in your own passion is also very healthy. Whatever, fires your soul or feeds your soul, to some people it's music. To some people it's, playing music or singing. Some people it's just doing, basketball, even if it's, on the sports side. So I think following your passion, feeding your passion is a very powerful way of keeping fit and healthy. Although it's not, it's not fitness, but it also adds to your sort of health.
Totally agree. So if subs can balance a complex career with family and fitness, so can you. This November, let's focus on making small changes to support our health and stay present. Book a call with me today and I'll help you build a plan tailored to your busy life. Thank you, subs, for sharing your journey with us. I hope every dad listening feels inspired to make health a priority. Thanks for tuning in today's episode of Fit Dad Hustle. November reminds us that men's health matters. Don't sacrifice your well-being for a busy schedule. Remember, hydration and fueling your body make a huge difference. I trust BioSteel for clean hydration. Use code MNYY147 for up to 25% off. Until next time, stay strong, stay connected, and keep hustling.